We're talking about some questions from you all as listeners and other folks that out in the world who have sent me questions about their workplace dilemmas, and we were visiting with Jack. And so just to catch you up, if you don't recall, I know our break was so long, but Jack is having difficulty staying focused and structured. And so the first piece of feedback I gave was how this manager needs to help Jack come to those meetings more prepared to be focused. Now let's talk about the group meetings where Jack kind of overtalks people. And so this is also a great coaching opportunity for the manager. So I would recommend the manager say to Jack, it's important to understand the distinction between quantity and quality. And Jack, I really think you've got some great perspectives, but I really want you to focus on quality and not quantity. And so what that means is I want you to make sure that you're spending a lot of time listening and really notice how many comments you're making in those meetings. And I want you to try and focus on saying less and listening more. So one of the pieces of advice that I give to my clients that maybe struggle with this and they find themselves talking more than they should, I tell them to in an old school way, come in with kind of a pad of paper, a notepad, and jot your thoughts down rather than say it. So when people are talking and you want to say something, just start jotting some notes down. And what it does two things. First of all, it forces you to gather your thoughts in a little more structured way because we're clearly finding he's not as structured and as concise as he could be. It also sends the message to the group that you're paying attention because it looks as though like you're taking notes on what people are saying. Okay. Now I want to be clear. I didn't say use your laptop and type because that's not perceived the same way. Taking notes down on a piece of pad of paper is viewed as I'm engaged in the meeting. Typing, even though you might be typing notes on what's going on, is viewed as I'm responding to something somebody posted on social media.
Yeah.
Even if you're taking notes, it's going to be perceived completely differently.
Right.
Never perceived well, someone typing in a meeting. Jotting notes on a pad, always perceived well. So I would tell him to do that and to notice it. And then she's just going to have to kind of help coach him and give him feedback because he's not getting it. But try and get his comments to be shorter. Now, one other good meeting technique that might also help that she could do as a meeting norm is I've had several teams use this concept before. It's called Elmo. Have you heard of it before?
Elmo?
Elmo, as in the Elmo.
Sesame Street?
Yeah, Sesame Street. And they'll literally go buy an Elmo doll.
Oh.
And they'll sit him in the meeting. And Elmo is an acronym for Enough, Let's Move On. And so whenever someone starts over talking,
they throw Elmo at
some teams, if they're playful, will throw Elmo at the person.
Funny.
Other teams will just bring Elmo out and kind of sit him on the table, signaling in a playful way.
Yeah.
Okay, you've been over talking. Time to move on. So you could have fun with it and bring in an Elmo.
Nice.
And use Elmo as kind of a signal for enough, let's move on. So those could be two ways to kind of work with Jack.
So how about in those instances where Jack just shows up to his boss's office and wants to have these long conversations? Is that a Elmo? Can we bring Elmo?
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about him kind of spontaneously showing up.
Yeah, just shows up at his office.
I had a leader who was on a panel earlier this year, and he had this great saying. He says, when people pop into my office, I tell them you can have 5 minutes now or 30 minutes tomorrow.
Nice. So
I would encourage her to have some kind of that's one way you can do it, is say, you get 5 minutes now, Jack, 5 minutes. That's it. Timer starts now. I've got a tight schedule. Or we can come back tomorrow, schedule some time, you get 30 minutes. What would you prefer? But
nice. Very good tip.
That's another form of putting boundaries. You're putting boundaries, and you're helping Jack to understand the importance of boundaries and structure, because it's not all about him. He's treating it like, I can just do whatever I want. It's all my world. Now, you've got other people who have needs and demands on their time too. So, yeah.
Perfect.
5 today, 30 tomorrow.
That is good. It's a good tip. Mm-hmm. Are you ready for the next one?
Ready.
All right, here we go. Dear workplace therapist, I am an associate at a law firm and manage a team of 4 legal secretaries. While I am technically their supervisor, many of these staff members have been at the firm years longer than I have. In a few months, for the first time, I will be tasked with preparing an annual review of these team members. Probably not surprisingly, I've been given little direction on how to conduct my meetings with each staff member and how to really complete an evaluation of their work. Can you offer any guidance? Signed, Uneasy Evaluator.
Oh, no.
So 4
This is bad news.
months. A few months.
How long have they been working with this?
Few months.
And they're asked to put together an annual review?
Correct.
Okay. 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 I'm going to tell you what they should do. They should not do any of the annual reviews.
Okay.
Period. None. Absolutely none. It cannot go well. It will only make things worse. Horrible decision.
Okay.
So what they should do is go back to their boss or their direct leader and say, I totally see the value in annual reviews. I totally want to do an annual review. I want to make sure that I've had enough time to work with them. But most importantly, I want to make sure I clarify expectations on what I expect before I do an annual review. See, the part that's missing in this is it's not clear that they ever sat down and said, here's what success would look like. So if you haven't had that conversation and then you come back and go, oh, guess what? You guessed wrong. You're not getting a very good review. People are going to be really upset.
Yeah.
So you cannot do performance reviews or annual reviews if you haven't done goal setting in the front end and clarifying expectations. It doesn't sound like they've done that. And given it's a law firm,
Yes.
probably it's not part of their culture because that's typically more common in corporate environments. But that's a common rhythm. In environments that are not corporate, you'll see less of the proper process followed. Nonprofits, doctors' offices, law firms, they're not going to sit down and say, let's talk about what goals you have and I have for you and success. And then now let's come back and do regular conversations. Now, another important thing, annual reviews, if it's truly an annual review, it is not it's not a feedback mechanism. It is a political document. It is designed to be able to measure people in different roles on the same playing field and also decide who gets raises and who gets promotions and who doesn't. You're mixing positive and negative feedback in the same document, which is a very bad thing unless everyone's already had those conversations. So it's really just supposed to be the formalization of all the conversations you've had along the year. Not like a surprise, and that's why they often don't go well. So I would not do this. I would say let's do this, but let's do this the right way. So let's start tomorrow, and I'm going to do some goal setting. And then a year from now, we'll do the annual reviews.
Awesome.
Yep.
You
don't sound like you have any questions about that. I guess I was clear.
Now that you asked.
Actually, it was not a question. It was more of just an observation.
So I wanted to clarify. If these goals are clear, doesn't necessarily have to be a year. So like say this person, maybe a few months is considered 6.
You could do 6 months for this, but typically if it's going to be tied to bonuses and promotions, then that's a yearly cycle.
Okay.
If it's not tied to that, you can do it 6 months. It's fine. Then it's more of a development conversation.
Okay.
And
not so much an annual review.
I'm sticking to the phrase annual review because it's often performance reviews. It's often like we do this once a year, and it's tied to bonuses, salary, and promotions.
Sure. Okay.
Like if it's tied to that, then that's an annual thing.
Okay.